Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hockey Think Tank podcast, brought to you by the Hockey Think Tank. A community for all really passionate players, parents, and coaches to go to get a little bit of education and a little bit of inspiration regarding the greatest game on the planet. What an episode we have for you guys here today. We are bringing on the commissioner of the United States Hockey League, the USHL, Glenn Hefferan, and it is a time right now where there is a lot of change going on in college hockey, which in turn, from a recruiting standpoint, has really affected junior hockey, the level right below it that feeds up into college hockey. And so it was great to get Glenn on to get his take on what's going on with the USHL here in America, with everything that's changing with the NCAA and the Canadian Hockey League up north. And was a great conversation. But before we do get over to Glenn, let's bring on the talent of the podcast, the one Jeffrey J. Hulavecchio. Good people, man. Vex, what's up, dude?
Speaking of good people, check this out, bro. Bang!
Oh,
Good
wow.
People GMBM collab. I got it in the mail a few hours ago. This is the prototype that we're going to be building off of. So if you're watching this on YouTube, or maybe I can have Laura cut this up so everybody can see it. But yeah, I'm going to be selling these. I'm partnering with them on GMBM Good People limited drop. So pretty cool. Pretty excited.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, we got to get him on the podcast, dude. Captain of an all team, and he's already started a business, and like he's doing this thing. And I don't know if you saw this, but they had a Good People hat night at his own junior hockey team's game.
Come on,
the coaches wore his hats. The players all wore his hats into the game with their suits. They sold his hats at the rink, and where I have the GMBM, he had the Wendigo logo. Like, how cool is that, bro? Like,
that's
for
cool.
me, it's like
at 19, 20 years old.
Yeah, dude, at 19, 20 years old. Like how freaking cool. Other players, take note. Okay. Who was it that we had on the podcast in year 1 or 2 that talked about NHL players that had serious hobbies outside of the NHL played better? They did this massive study in the
Duncan
NHL.
Fletcher. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So listen to that one, guys. Like, having something that you love doing outside of the game is going to allow you to blow off steam and focus your brain and work your brain other ways and just do all these things. Also find worth in something else other than just hockey. And it's going to make you better. But yeah, you guys look for these on my Instagram soon. Everybody, like, I get tons weekly when I wear this hat, people asking where to get it. So really excited for this.
That's cool. Yeah. And that thing that you were talking about, Duncan Fletcher, he did some work with the NHLPA, and they did a study. This was probably 6-7 years ago now. So my memory is a little fleeting, but basically in their research, it showed that if you had an interest or a hobby outside of the game while playing professional hockey, made you a better hockey player. So yeah, and I think that's actually a really good dovetail into this conversation that we have with Glenn, because I get a lot of questions from parents about junior hockey, particularly parents who did not grow up with the game. They grew up in another sport or doing something outside of sports, and junior hockey is a foreign concept to a lot of people. You and I are a product of junior hockey, as are 8 to 99% of college hockey players at the Division I and the Division III level. And so it was great to get Glenn on to kind of talk about junior hockey, what it is. We got to share some stories about when we played junior hockey in the USHL, the league that he's leading right now. And then, yeah, there are so many changes going on in college hockey, particularly the one being that the Canadian Hockey League now can have their players play college hockey, which never used to be the case. So up until last year, if you played in the Canadian Hockey League, and that is the Ontario Hockey League, the Quebec Maritimes Junior Hockey League, or the Western Hockey League out west, you were deemed a professional athlete by the NCAA, and you could not play NCAA hockey. Now, that just like pretty much it seems like rule for the NCAA has gone away. And so it was great to get Glenn on to see what they're doing to to better their product in this competition for players. The USHL has been a great feeding ground, not only for NCAA hockey, but also for the NHL. The NTDP is a part of the USHL. And so, there was a lot of great discussion, a lot of great questions that we asked him, and we got to share a lot of our experience based on what we know of junior hockey and, having done it, you for 3 years, me for 4 years. Again, it was a long time ago, but, one of the things that we talk about is like, man, that it helped us to grow up. Junior hockey helped us to grow up. Went in a boy, became a man, and we were much more ready to play college hockey, having gone through that experience. But what were your overall takes on getting the chance to meet Glenn here and talk to him and talk some shop?
Yeah, I mean, just really cool guy, really intelligent guy. I love his ability to zoom out. I mean, he hit us with one answer that you guys, I don't want to give it away right now, but that I was so impressed with, and I'd love to hear it because it's exactly how, you have to think as a hockey player, let alone the guy who's running, the best junior league in America, one of the best junior leagues in the world. And just really excited to hear like where they're going and their vision. And I thought like USHL would have been worried, honestly, when I heard this, I was like, oh man, what's this going to do to the USHL? And after talking to him, unbelievable. Like, I'm stoked for it. I love it. I love everything that he said. Hard times make you dig deeper to find what you're really made of. And I think that's kind of where his thought process is. And I think it's only going to deepen and make the USHL better at what they do.
Yeah. And it has to, because American players, the USHL and USA Hockey wants to keep them playing junior hockey here in the States and not going up to Canada. And so, yeah, it's one of those things. I totally agree with you. One of the best parts about his way of thinking is like, yeah, there's a change in the landscape. There's nothing we can do about it except for make our product better and compete with those leagues and collaborate with those leagues too. But like, it's if you throw yourself a pity party and these rules are unfair and whatever, like your product's going to go down. If you go in it being like, okay, this needs to make us better, we're going to have to compete. There you go.
Yeah. He's a really cool guy. This is a great interview. We could have gone on for another hour,
Yeah, I think this was our longest interview that we've done
in a minute, but this is good. You guys are going to love this one.
Yeah, it was really good. And Glenn's got a really good scope of the landscape and has been very involved in USA Hockey. And I don't think we've done an episode since the men won. And so we did, we usually record on Fridays. And this time last week, the women had won, but the men had not, if I remember correctly. And so just want to congratulate the men's hockey team for winning gold. We are going to do a Friday face-off on, that whole thing that was all over social media and all over the news as far as our president and the phone call and just the follow-up from that. But we won't get too into that now. But congratulations to the men's team and the women's team. I mean, double gold, man. Double gold hockey-wise, USA Hockey, first time it's ever been done, and just a treat to be able to watch both of those teams win, and couldn't be prouder. Couldn't be prouder to be an American. Very, very cool stuff.
Let's go. Red, white, and the blue, baby. It's just crying when they brought out the Goudreau's kids in the jersey. Man, dude. Absolutely unbelievable. Just everything from their interviews to everything. Just couldn't be prouder to be a hockey player in America.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I wrote a blog last week, and it was kind of like my 5 biggest takeaways from USA winning 2 golds. And one of the things that I talked about, and we talk about it a lot, it's something I'm very, very passionate about, let's call it, is that if you can find a way to get a group of people to play for something bigger than themselves, there's no greater power if you want to win a championship than that. There really isn't. And I've been fortunate to have been a part of championship teams at a lot of different levels. And one of the biggest consistencies of all of them was just a love in the locker room and playing for each other and playing for something bigger. That's why I love college hockey too. Like, college hockey is amazing because like you're playing for your alumni base. You're obviously playing for the players in the locker room, but you're playing for your alumni. You're playing for your school. You might be playing for the whole town, if it's a college town and stuff. And I thought both the men and the women did a phenomenal job of playing for something bigger. But then when you talk about Johnny Gaudreau and playing for something bigger from that, one of my, of all the stuff that was going around on social media, my favorite one was the picture where McKinnon's got that wide open net. And there's no way Nathan McKinnon puts that in 99 times out of 100, and it just didn't go in for him on that one. And there was a picture of like Johnny Gaudreau in like an angel costume, kind of like blocking the puck, and it not going in. I don't know if you saw that, but
I didn't.
Yeah, it's if you're in the hockey world, even if you're not in the hockey world as much, and you kind of follow media in the NHL, but if you're really in the hockey world, you really understand how just amazing of a person Johnny Gaudreau was, and his brother Matt, and the hole that has been left from the NHL, from where Johnny's from, out in like the Philly and South New Jersey area, to, every town that he's played in the NHL. And then you look at USA Hockey, and, they had a stall for him in the locker room with his jersey there. They win the gold, and they bring the jersey out, and then they bring the kids out onto the ice for the picture. I'm sitting in the lobby of a rink watching this, and there's not a dry eye in the lobby. And there were a couple of people in our family that came up to me that didn't really know. And I'm like, I'm crying. And they're like, dude, like, what? Like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, man, this is just, it's bigger than life. It's bigger than hockey. Yeah. And I just so cool that they played for him. I think he was a big part of the reason he deserves a medal, honestly, just for the person that he was, the legacy he's left, and the impact that he's made on the players, obviously, that he played with, but just on USA Hockey as a whole. And yeah, it's, that was emotional. It was pretty incredible that the guys did that for, and then I think it was NBC actually flew his family out for the final game. Just really, really cool stuff.
I didn't know that. That's really cool. Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, we're not promised tomorrow, man. We are not promised tomorrow. Live for today. So, but yeah, congrats, Team USA, Hockey, and everybody. Great job, and USHL, big part of USA Hockey. So, before we do get over to the USHL and Glenn, we do have some people to thank. Though first, we want to thank our title sponsor, IceHockeySystems.com, the best website out there for all your coaching education needs, but not just your coaching education needs anymore. They have IHS Family for all parents and players out there to get some more perspective, or for the players to develop your skills and watch some great breakdowns and video that can help you be a better hockey player. So go to IceHockeySystems.com today. They also have the ability to go in. There's thousands of drills in there for you, whiteboard explanations from really, really high-level hockey people, ability to go in there and draw up your drills and build yourself or your entire organization if you're in the association platform, a library of everything that you think about the game. And man, just an absolute value add to any youth organization, any family, any coach. IceHockeySystems.com. Jeffrey, go.
Massive thank you to Train Heroic, guys. I'm dropping my online off-season program here really soon. Whether you're 13 and under and you're doing the at-home program, so your parents don't have to drop you off at a gym or anything, with mainly things that you'll find around your house, or you're the in-gym program and you're using weights and sleds and everything a public gym or a really nice athletic gym will have to offer. It's going to be a 20-week off-season program. What's really cool about this summer is you're also going to have the options to add an individual nutritionist for you, who you can have video calls with, who will do your macros for you, who will hold you accountable every single week to making sure that you're putting in the fuel and to refuel the body to grow, actually get stronger. Most young players don't eat. And then also an option to add on video. So GMA's resident in-house video coach, Michael Hunterbrinker, one of my retired pros, did video for all of the Give More advising clients all season long. They absolutely loved it. They all got better. It's been one of the coolest things I've ever done here, is adding Michael to the biz and helping more players. So all those things are going to be available here in a couple weeks. If you have any questions, reach out. Teams and organizations, you get massive discounts. I've already had 4 sign up for the off season. So reach out and
hooking them up. Hey, there we go. And now we're going to thank the guys at Helios Hockey. What an unbelievable hockey product. Helios Hockey, it is a sensor that you put into your shoulder pad that gives you real-time data, real-time feedback on your play. 2 big things in particular, one of them being a hustle score. So every time you move, that sensor lights up, and it gives you a little bit of a sense of what's going on in the ice as far as your effort level and just how fast you're moving out there. But also If you want to achieve the highest levels of the game today, one of the most important skills is to skate, to be a great skater. And they have development tools and data that can help you with your stride length and mechanics as well. So go to helioshockey.com, use the coupon code ThinkTank, one word, and you will get a 20% discount on your pro annual or your pro 24-month subscription. Also want to thank Crossbar, an end-to-end software solution to help you to optimize your operations for your youth hockey organization. And this is something that I know a lot of youth organizations have switched from some of the big box type stuff over to Crossbar and have been extremely happy that they did. And the big part of the reason for that is things like having an unbelievable user experience on the front end, really clean and easy to use. On the back end, really clean and easy to use. Facility management, financial management, rink management, 5-star communication app, scheduling app for everything from your entire season to the little tiny things like drop-ins and clinics that you put on. So this is just a one-stop shop to make sure that you are running your youth organization more efficiently. Go to crossbar.org and check that out today. And then lastly, thank you to all of our amazing listeners. We love you guys so much. We continue to grind this baby out, 400 plus episodes in, 7+ years in, and we love doing this. We love all the feedback that you give us, whether it's through email, whether it's through seeing you in a rink, whether it's through DMs, and we appreciate you guys. Love bringing on great guests like Glenn Hefferan. And so actually, you know what? Let's just do it. Without further ado, here we go with the USHL Commissioner, Glenn Hefferan. We are so excited to have on this episode of the podcast, we got the commissioner of the USHL, Glenn Hefferan. Glenn, how are we doing on this beautiful Friday?
Topher, it's a great day. Really, it's been an awesome week. I think you probably can think of 2 big reasons why. So pretty exciting week for us, and see 22 former USHLers or USHL alum compete for the gold, and obviously our USA women's team winning gold. Just absolutely phenomenal.
Just a great couple of days, no question. Go USA, baby. Well, good. Well, we're excited to have you on the podcast. I mean, there's so many things that are happening in the junior college and pro hockey world. Just lots of changes and lots of new avenues. And it's been a little crazy, and everybody's trying to sort it out and figure it out. And we're excited to have you on here to talk about the USHL. But before we get into some of that stuff, we just to introduce you to our listeners, we'd love to ask you how you fell in love with this great game of hockey and what led you to becoming the USHL commissioner at the end of the day a couple years ago.
So I grew up in Jersey City, and we didn't have any outdoor rinks. And so I started skating when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, but it was always the skates that were underneath the Christmas tree, those black figure skates. And so I was about 12 and a half, and I was at like a post-Christmas holiday open public skating session at an outdoor rink that was located behind center field wall of Roosevelt Stadium, which was a pretty famous stadium in Jersey City as itself. And I collided with this kid, Kevin Russell, and he got up pretty quick, and he looked at me, he goes, "It's those figure skates. You got to get hockey skates." I'm like, I don't even know where to look. So I went home and called the local department store, and they had a pair of Sherbrooks on sale for $24.95. That's $24.95. That'll tell you how long that was, 1977. And I hounded my mom for about an hour, and she finally gave in and took me down there, and we got the skates. And I went that night to public skating, and Kevin sees me and he goes, "Look at you, you're skating better already." And he and I were the same age, and he said, "Come to my house and I'll get you some of my old gear, and we'll start you playing in the Jersey City Our Lady of Mercy hockey program." And I'm like, okay, and thought this would be a cool thing. And I got to his house, and his dad's looking at me. He goes, "What's your last name?" I go, "Hefferan." He goes, "You Gail's son." I go, "Yeah, it's my mom." He goes, "Oh, we know your mom." And he called my mom up, and next thing you know, I can hear her screaming on the other end, like, "Hockey, he's going to lose his teeth." And I stayed with it. I was never very good. I was a terrible hockey player, but that program was, not run by learned hockey guys, but good dads who really cared about what we became as people and created an environment that it didn't matter how good or bad of a player you were made to feel like you belong, no matter your skill level. And so that kind of sparked a passion. Our club made us officiate for free when we turned 15. So they would get you your certification, and you'd take the test, and they get you your first sweater. And I kind of found a passion for officiating, started officiating, and stayed with that for a while, and then started coaching. And I accident got involved in a pretty high performance league at the junior level. Back then it was called the Met League, one of the oldest junior leagues around. I mean, starting with guys like Nicky Fatillo to Jimmy Dowd, Charlie McAvoy played in it, so some good players Mark Eaton, a lot of good players that come through it. But I had the good fortune of running a team in it, and they asked me to be president. And then I got involved with USA Hockey in the early 90s and jumped on their board of directors. And I've been involved in hockey to some degree pretty much ever since. And the USHL gig was, I had no sights set on that when the position opened. I got a couple of phone calls from a few owners that I know, and they said, you really should apply and put your name in for consideration. And after a lot of debate and probably a lot of prayer, I kid you not, made the decision to put my name in, and here we are almost 3 years later. And I've, it's been a lot of hard work and managing a lot of, really strong personalities, and but it's been worth it. It's been a great time.
That's awesome. And what do you think, like in the 3 years that you've been doing this, what do you feel like is the biggest thing you've learned? The biggest thing when looking back, wow, this is something I really love about the game. Wow, this is something that needs to change. What's been some of the biggest things that you've learned in getting that title of commissioner?
Well, I think probably some of it I've always known and maybe just not fully recognized. One of them is this, and I think social media contributes, as the access to information contributes to it, and misinformation contributes to it, is this rush. Parents think this is a sprint, and development is really, it's a marathon. And for every player, it's going to be different. You're going to pop at a different age than your teammates sitting next to you. And I think my good friend, John Riley, who was out of Atlantic District and is scouting, he was with the Flyers at the time when he said it to me. He's with Tampa now. And he said to me, he says, all these kids think they have to be at every single exposure event. And what they don't realize, they better be careful because they might be exposed. And I knew exactly what it was it's a great comment, because,
great comment.
They need to be in an environment more often where it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to try new things and to challenge yourself and not have to worry that there's a set of eyes that really matter. And those eyes are scouts and college guys and junior guys. And, and I think from that standpoint, I think that's one of the things we have to do a better job at, is realizing that until you get to the National Hockey League, it really doesn't, well, I guess maybe college too. It really doesn't matter about wins and losses. Development is really about the freedom to make mistakes and work hard and challenge yourself. So I think that's something that really crystallized for me, and seeing how much these players care and how much pressure they put on themselves. I think the other part of it is, I think this is a time issue. I'm 60 years old, and I think back when I was 40 and coming through and dealing with USA Hockey issues and changes in rules and policy and direction and whatever, and you have these feelings that the sky's falling. And the reality is the sky isn't falling. You're going to figure it out. You're going to get through it, and you're going to be better on the other side of it, no matter what the challenge is. And so all through this, since the change in the NCAA eligibility, I've seen this purely as opportunity. There's so much opportunity now for us to do some things to reset our own game, and to be better at development. I think we're really good now, but there's always room for improvement. And I think that some of the results that you're seeing, obviously the gold medal is a huge testament to USA Hockey and the development model that we've worked so hard on over the last 20 years. 2 out of the last 3 World Juniors. The women's performance, not only in the Olympics, but just in all of the international competition, the development of the PWHL. So at both sides of the sport is really, I think we've done such an incredible job. And that was I think that was probably something that was crystallized more so for me most recently. And I hear other guys talk about, oh, if you're in this state, it's terrible. And like learned hockey guys that are on major podcasts that talk about this state is terrible and, oh, it's so much better over here. And listen, there are some places in our country that just crush it in terms of, like I always talk about Minnesota. There's a reason why 25% of the league comes from Minnesota. Their model is really exceptional. Is it perfect? No, I'm sure they'll tell you it's not perfect. But I think we have to stop trash talking our sport. Because if you were just a casual listener and thinking about where you're going to put your kid, is he going to baseball? Is she going to go to soccer? And they hear some of the things we say it's important to be self-critical for sure. But I think we have to be mindful that there's so much right about our sport than wrong.
That's why we do this podcast. Exactly why we do this podcast, because we believe that there's so much more right. But oftentimes it's the wrong stuff. It's the crazy parent, Well, I think real quick, the most important thing that you just said is that you looked at all of this last few years as an opportunity to grow and get better. I think that's the most important, because, me as a guy who played in the USHL for 3 years, and it shaped the adult and the man that I am today, honestly, and the hockey player I became after that. It's so important to hear people say that, because some people in the USHL where the sky is falling, and to hear that from one of the guys in leadership, that makes me so happy, because it doesn't matter if we're talking about hockey or business or school or life. You have to look at everything that way, because that's how you actually get better. So I just want to interject and say it's very, very cool that that's how you are approaching this and this whole situation.
Toph, you were about to say something. Oh, no, I was just going to say, just in terms of, kind of like the negativity versus positivity in speaking about the game. We have been very outspoken on some things that we disagree with on things that happen. And I think there's a difference between venting and complaining and educating and providing solutions. And that's where we feel like we hope we can come in and give people perspective on some things that maybe aren't so good, give some perspective on things that maybe are pretty good in the game. And it's just very easy nowadays to just complain and make excuses. But you gotta talk about the good stuff too, 100%. And there is a lot of good that's going on that gets overshadowed.
And I think you guys do that. I think you're right. There is some things that we can highlight. There's an outlet that had posted a really horrible situation where a coach just went off on a 19-year-old female referee. It was awful. It's a disgusting display. And of course it got national attention, and national media picked it up, and a million views and all of that. And I said, we should have context for that, because on that same day, there were thousands of games played where that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I think those are the things we have to be mindful of, that those are the rare exceptions, but it's so much easier. What gets if you posted a clip where you saw a referee and a coach having a conversation, they're both nodding their head yes, you're not posting that. Like, it's irrelevant, right? It doesn't move the needle. But have one where a coach is losing their mind, and that coach got suspended for 3 years. That didn't make a headline, right? Yeah. So we and maybe those are the things we should publish, that those things do get taken seriously. So I think, and when some of our guys, there's no question, our coaches and GMs are paid to develop players and win. There's parameters, I'm sure, on their employment agreements that are, you make first round of playoffs, make second round of playoffs. And so they want to be the best they can. And they certainly want to move up the ladder. So they're closer to it. So it's easier for them to be impacted by it. by what they see happening. And so, but the one thing I really take to heart, and I'm not trying to be funny about 6s and 7s, but I've used this analogy that we get a lot of players, relatively speaking, that are 6s and 7s, and we turn them into 8s and 9s. That's what our model does. That is our superpower as a league. We take players that are really good and we make them that much better. And I think when I look at free agency signings and I see players and I follow their path, I think 2 years ago, we had 88 players in the National Hockey League that were undrafted, USHL alum, undrafted, far more than any other league, a lot more than any other league in the world. And I looked at their path, and they did 4 years of college, and then they went to the American League, or some went to the Coast League, to the American League, to the NHL. And I think to myself, that's a great thing. That's that player's path. Then you have a player like Macklin Celebrini, who I know I'll get eviscerated for this by some people. I think Mac played from the time he was 13 in the United States he was with the San Jose Junior Sharks, to Shattuck, to the Chicago Steel, to BU, to San Jose. Arguably one of the best players that played for Team Canada, certainly in the top 3. And that was his experience, right? That was his path.
So you're saying the USA made him. Got it. All right, let's put that clip out.
Listen, I'm comfortable.
I see what you're putting down. I see. We're putting that on Twitter.
I think it's fair to say, we're proud of him. We're happy to see what he's done. I'm sure that's not going to be popular with some people, but his formative years were here in the United States. And that's a good thing. That's something to be celebrated. And there's other players that have had that same opportunity. And so that's not to say that there isn't great places to develop in Canada. There are. It's clearly the case. But we do a really good job here, and that should not be overlooked, especially when you look at the performance. Men's Worlds. What was the last time we won Men's World? What was it? 1939.
Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah.
1939. We just won Men's Worlds. The Olympics. We're in the finals and overtime in the Four Nations tournament. 2 out of the last 3 World Juniors. So performance is there. We're getting it done, and as I said, we've had more players drafted that are USHL alum than any other league in the world. And that's just counting direct. We start adding in the players that get drafted once they left and went to college. That's a whole other set of numbers. And I bore people all the time with those stats and whatnot, but data does tell part of the story. It doesn't tell the whole story, but it tells a big part of it. And it's not just, players. We've had great coaches: Greg Brown, Mike Hastings, Bob Motzko, Adam Nightingale, Luke Strand, Frank Serratori. You think about, we're contributing to the ecosystem. And I think we're about to have a pretty big announcement with the National Hockey League pretty soon. And I think it sends a strong statement about what the National Hockey League thinks of the USHL. So I think it's all positive.
That's great. I want to go back to something that you talked about a little bit earlier, and that's kind of like everybody's in a rush. So you're talking to 2 guys right now that went to junior hockey too early. I probably went 2 years too early. Vex probably went a year too early. And luckily, we have great support systems and great people that helped us through, really, really struggling in our first, year or 2 of playing juniors. And we talk all the time that I think the biggest jump and the biggest transition from any level to another level is midget hockey to junior hockey. I think the jump from junior hockey to college isn't as big. The one from college to pro is not as big. Youth to junior is the biggest one. And one of the things that worries me, I'll say, about the changing landscape of, the CHL teams and major junior teams' ability to now come down and play to Canada is a little bit of an arms race where a league or a team is going to try to get a kid early, as young as they can, so they have them in their stable. And they're going to stay with that team, throughout, and, they get to graduate from that team or whatever it may be. As someone who has gone to junior hockey too early, completely lost my confidence and hated the game. And for anybody that has listened to this podcast, to hear me say that I hated the game at some point is a pretty big statement. And also as a college coach and in the recruiting process, I've seen so many kids who went too early and it was the wrong, instead of marinating in 18U or 16U, and you know what I mean? So can you talk a little bit about the changing landscape and, the younger players eventually going on to play junior hockey and how you think about that as the commissioner of the USHL?
It's a great question, Topher, and it's complicated. It has a lot of other ramifications or dynamics to consider. So let's take a player who's a really good player, has clearly Division I potential, but doesn't have the ability to spend $25,000, $30,000 on his Tier 1 youth experience. But you want him on your junior team, and it's not going to cost him anything. And he's going to get sticks and gear. And so there's definitely an allure. And I think there's two sides to that now. Coach in the junior ranks, don't take that kid unless you know you're going to play him and make him a better player, in my opinion. And on the other side of it, player, don't leave where you're at until you've mastered it. Be really proficient where you're at and then look to make that leap. And there are players, and I use Charlie McAvoy as an example. Charlie McAvoy was 15 years old when he played in the Met League. And that age range was 15 to 20. And there was probably a lot more 19 and 20-year-olds in that league. And he had to play a tough game. And I'll never forget this. I was standing next to Pat Tupuzzo, a former NHL linesman who was scouting for Toronto at the time. And he says, "See that kid right there?" And I go, "Yeah, McAvoy." He goes, "He's going to play in the NHL." And I just looked at him like, "Come on, Pat." He goes, "Mark my words, he's going to play in the NHL." And sure enough, I don't even think he had an invite to NTDP camp yet. And Pat actually made that call and said, "Hey, have you seen this kid?" And you know the rest of the story. And so he had mastered where he was at. AAA in our region was not, in the Northeast, was not, I think, as sophisticated as it is now, where programs really do a lot of things, particularly off ice and training and so on, and are practice focused. Back then, AAA had this, once high school started, cut down to maybe one practice a week. And that's what was happening, where junior was trying to practice 2-3 days a week and really kind of mimic as best they could the USHL and North American League model. So it's a complicated issue that has economic factors, has the pressures for within the team, the junior team itself, as to what their priorities are. You take a look at the roster differences in the USHL. You've got some teams that really focus on young players and young talent to get them better and stronger. Max Celebrini, we just talked about, how young he was when he played in the USHL. So I think every player, no differently in their path, it's a circumstance that has to fit. It's easy to find the ones where it was, I shouldn't say easy, but it's more noticeable on the ones that shouldn't have gone as early as they did. I know a particular player who went when he was 16, and I knew it was the wrong thing. Yeah, did he go on to play Division I? He did. Ended up playing in Ivy League school, and ever since then, he's never played the game again. He finished school and he's done. He doesn't play anymore. So there's definitely some things on that we should be doing a better job at guiding. And then you have this other factor that comes into play. Age. They play a big role in all of this.
The agents are, they carry a big stick in the game of hockey in a lot of different ways right now.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
No
so
question.
How do you again? So think about all of these things that you're managing, and we talk about this on a weekly basis. Just who are we communicating to? Do we have a communication piece that is directed towards agents? Are we communicating to the 14 and 13-year-old player to build a relationship with that player, a brand relationship with that player? Are we talking to that 16, 17-year-old that's ready to pop? Are we talking to mom and dad? And when I say talking, I mean just creating, whether it's social media content or just being available for information. And how are we connecting with them? It's so different from what it was when you guys played. It is, and that has to do with how fast information moves.
Yeah.
And misinformation moves.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences between the USHL now and 20 years ago or so when Vex and I were in it, we didn't know what the USHL was. We had no idea, right?
No
like
idea.
zero clue on what it was. And now, you look at any 10 to 15-year-old kid, they all know what the USHL is,
Going to the U show,
which is great. But Glenn,
What years did you guys play?
so I was 2000 to 2004, and Vex, you were what?
02 to 05.
02 to 05, yeah.
So my first game was that I went to. I was asked to be shortly after Dave Ogren became executive director on the first go around. I was asked to be part of this Super League task force, which is basically the precursor to Tier 1 Junior. And we all were flown. The whole committee was flown into Waterloo, Iowa. And this is before Young Arena. And it was at the old McElroy.
My dad played at Waterloo.
He played at McElroy.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So when somebody says to you, "Oh, that's an old barn," think of the worst old barn you could think of, and that was McElroy. The worst sight lines, but I was there. It was the largest crowd they ever had, 5,500 people. Then the next night we're in Des Moines, and then the next night we were in at the Exarban for Omaha. And as president of the Met League, I said to myself, I got to get our players here. Like, I knew that was the place to get and kids like Chris Sorella and Mark Eaton and Rob Scuderia. Rob never ended up playing in the USHL, but we exposed our top talent to that league because we believed that was the best place for them to develop. And so if you didn't see it for yourself, and I know so many people in the Northeast had this negative opinion about, oh, you're going to live in a lousy basement in Iowa and it's going to be horrible and you're going to hate it. If you didn't experience it, you had no idea what you were missing. It was unbelievable. And so, like I said, I think getting that message out and making sure that families understand what we do. I think again, I talked about our superpower, and that is taking players and making them the best they can be in a model that is very similar to where they're going. Mm-hmm. And they're going, almost 95% of our players will play Division I college hockey. It's a Friday, Saturday game, off Sunday, train Monday through Thursday. And we do that on a weekly basis, rinse and repeat. And I think that's our superpower. And I think that's why we've had such a great advantage, and we'll continue to have that advantage.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I would like to state for the record, I lived in a really nice basement in Nebraska.
With Coach Brandon Naurato of the Michigan Wolverines.
Roommates with Brandon Naurato, correct.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Glenn, I want to kind of go back to Charlie McAvoy, because I think that's a great person to talk about, because at that time that you were watching him play for the New Jersey Rockets and Bob Thornton, I was recruiting him, and I was at Cornell at the time, and we didn't recruit young players at Cornell at that time. It was not something we really dipped our toe into. However, if we saw a kid that was that age that we really liked for whatever reason, we'd bring him to campus because the Cornell crowd is amazing and we'd love to get him in there just to see a game. And I'll never forget, we brought Charlie to campus, and his dad came too, Charlie Sr., and had no intentions. And I've told this story on the podcast before, but we had no intentions really of offering him a spot in our program. We didn't do that with kids at that age. And the two of them made such an impression on us as people. Like, this was right after Hurricane Sandy. Charlie Sr. owns a plumbing business in Long Island, and they talked about just the community coming together, and just you could tell that they were absolutely phenomenal people. And I'll never forget sitting in Shafe's office, our head coach, and he goes, like, just puts me on the spot. He's like, "Are we going to offer this kid a spot in our program?" Like, in front of them. And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, are we going to offer him?" And I just kind of was like, "Yeah, I think we should. Absolutely." And he was along the same lines as me. Like, we just fell in love with the kid and the dad. And because of that, he obviously ended up going to BU. He didn't go to Cornell, but they made such an impression as people. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because Charlie McAvoy played for the national program. Wasn't supposed to. The reason why he made the team is because a kid from Minnesota went back to play high school hockey, and he was the odd man out and ended up being the next guy in, and then ended up being the best player, defenseman on the team. But he went early. I went early. Vex went early. It was really, really hard. But you know what? The same thing, and I'll put Adam Fantilli in there because I know Adam and his family. You could probably throw Macklin Celebrini in there because, you know, a lot has been said about his dad and his family being with the Golden State Warriors and everything like that. If you're going to go early, you're going to hit a lot of road bumps. It is not going to be easy. And the support system that you have and the family that you have is so incredibly important to the success that you're going to have as you're going through some of that tough stuff. Yeah. So if you are finding yourself in a situation where maybe you feel like you've gone a little bit too early, maybe it's AA to AAA, maybe it's midget hockey to juniors, and maybe if it's juniors to college, because there's kids that go to college a year too early, they should play another year of juniors before they go. Really relying and leaning on your support system and understanding that as that support system, you don't make excuses for kids, and you don't tell them you're getting the short end of the stick, and you tell them you got to fight through this, and you got to do what you're asked, and you got to be a great teammate, and you got to bring great energy every day. Those were the messages I was getting. Those were the messages Vex was getting, knowing Charlie and his family. Like, that's, and so, you know, I wanted to circle back to that because, you know, just knowing him and then knowing some of the other people that have gone and hit the hard stuff, that support system is everything, man. Absolutely everything.
It is. And I would add in, I think faith too. If you watched enough USHL games, I tell everybody, pay attention to once the game is over and the players start to head off, you will notice just about in every USHL game, or many of them, you'll see a bunch of players go to center ice and take a knee. And sometimes the opposing team will even join them. And I only assume that they're having their conversation with what they believe is their higher power. I know most of our teams have someone from Hockey Ministries, and I think that's part of it. And you see a lot of NHL players talk about their faith, and I think that's a lot of what gets you through. Rand Pecknold said something to me. We did our draft 2 years ago in his building, and we had an occasion to chat for a few minutes, and he said, "No, I don't consider the USHL a development league." And my heart sunk, and I'm like, oh gosh, where is this going? Like, this isn't a good conversation. He said, "I consider it a survival league." He says, "The players we get out of the USHL, they are just so battle tested. They're so hardened. They are ready for anything. We throw everything at them." And I'll tell you what, I'll point to an example. Take a look at Ethan Wittenbeck. So here's a player who I've become know his family very well and know Ethan very well. But here's a kid who in August, before he heads out, he's just hoping to make Sioux Falls, hoping he makes the team. That's what he said to me. He said it in interviews, makes the team, then says, "I want to make sure I can at least crack the third line." He's coming out of the goals program out of Long Island, and not only makes the third line, does better, makes the prospects game, had a little bit of an injury, but still gets himself drafted by Calgary. And now he's off to Quinnipiac, and he's leading NCAA in points as a freshman. He's
by a lot,
leading all of NCAA. And he's a candidate for Hobie Baker. And he's the humblest kid, and he just puts his head down. He's so well put together. And I think that has a lot to do with his USHL experience and and it's certainly the hard work he puts in. And so like that is such a great example that Rand had no idea how prophetic that would be when, now he's got Witt there and he's killing it. And so I think that's the opportunities that the USHL creates. I think everybody also has to understand that you see a player and he hits here. Sometimes they stop here. That's it. That's where they land, and they never get better than that. And that's not anyone's fault. It's just, it happens to be where they're at physiologically or mentally. And so I just feel like the things we're doing and the way we are constructing the league and the schedule, and we're going to be even better at that. Last year, we were 92% of our games were Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This year, only 89%. And we'll get back to fixing that to make sure. We roll off about 3.1 days of the calendar of a week for every game played. I hope that makes sense. Other leagues that we compete against in the regular season, they're about 2.1. So they're playing like every other day. We don't do that. And we also have a bit of a longer season and a shorter schedule. And so I just think we've got a great formula that helps players develop. And, our mantra has been, our path, your pace. We take a look at Yeageroff, who left in the middle of last season. I think he was a big part of the reason of getting BU to the Frozen Four last year. Tynan Lawrence, and I think, some people north of the border question us, like, how could you be celebrating him leaving the league? He's a top draft pick. Because he felt that it was his time to go and the school was ready to take him. We celebrate that. Sure, we would have loved for him to finish his season with us. But when he gets drafted this coming year, we're going to celebrate it. He's part of our fabric of our league. And the fact that he left in the middle of the season to play college is a good thing. It's fun.
Yeah.
Love that.
Well, having being an alum of the USHL. And I tell people this a lot because, with what we do at the Hockey Think Tank, we have a lot of parents that come up to us that are skeptical about junior hockey in general, right? Like a kid graduates high school, they should go to college. What are they going to do for 2 years? And the average age of a Division I college freshman is on the men's side is 20, and it's just a reality of the game right now. But if I were to be able to talk to parents that are listening that might have those concerns, I tell people all the time that I think the USHL made me a man. I went in a boy and I left a man. And I think that's a great comment that Rand made. You're battle ready, you're battle tested. You go through a lot of stuff. A lot of kids first time away from home. A lot of kids, it's the first time getting scratched. A lot of kids, it's the first time playing a role that's not the top player on their team. And it really, you got to dig deep and you got to build some life skills while you're there, because it's not easy. It's USHL is the top junior league, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. The NTDP, people don't understand that it's their job as support staff and coaches to make it really, really hard for them so they can have success once they're done. And it really does, I think, for me anyway, Vex, I don't know what you would think, but I really think it made a man out of me. Like I just had so many more life skills coming out of there from having going through some tough stuff. And I was able to learn that because I had a great support system. I had great coaches in the USHL. I had 3 coaches in 4 years. One of them is the director of player development for the Washington Capitals. One of them is a scout for the Washington Capitals. And one of them is the director of player development for the Vegas Golden Knights. And the relationship that I built with him during my time in the USHL still have today. And he invited me to his cup party 2 years ago after they won. Like that, those are the types of bonds that you have. And we talk about all the time. It's about people. And I learned so much from playing in the league that helped me, not just succeed in hockey, but in what I'm doing today. Is a really big part of that.
How about, college hockey, and College Hockey Inc. puts out the data on academic performance and graduation rate, and hockey routinely is in the top 3, often in the top 2 of sports, athletes that play that particular sport. And hockey is right up there. High graduation rate, high success rate academically. And I think those are good things to highlight. And maybe those are, again, some of the things we don't talk about. And we have an academic standard. Every one of our teams has an academic advisor to work with their athletes that are still finishing up school and making sure that they're ready to advance into the NCAA world. Those are things that get lesser attention, but they're really important. And I think you're going to see some stuff in the next, in the next month or so that we're going to be even better at. And I think that's exciting. And again, we come back to the question earlier. There's opportunities here, and I think everyone sees it. And especially now with this Olympic moment, I think if you look back and see what the 80 win did for us as a country, a lot of new rinks came online right after that. The sport grew immensely after that. And I think you're going to see that. People are I'm getting calls all the time now that people are starting to call rinks and say, hey, what learn to play programs you have? And so people get really excited about this stuff. And let's be honest, that hockey is a very nationalistic sport. You saw the television numbers for an 8 a.m. game on a Sunday morning in the East Coast time. You saw the numbers for the Four Nations. This rivalry between us and Canada is awesome. It's so good for the game. Obviously thrilled we win. That's a huge moment for us. And I know it's probably depressing as hell for the Canadians, and that's okay because they're going to dig in and they're going to come back stronger and harder the next time. And that's what makes this game so great.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more, sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
Well, with that, you talk about the rivalry between U.S. and Canada, and there's, let's call it a little bit of a rivalry between the USHL and the CHL right now. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, you look at the numbers, and we were both down in Nashville at the USA Hockey meetings, and USA Hockey at the top level of the pyramid and midget hockey is doing some things differently, and they're putting together this National Development League to. This major junior rule where major junior kids can go play in college, it's fundamentally changed our sport, I think, in a lot of different ways. And you're seeing more American kids, at least this year, now that rule, and it's new, so that might be a part of it, but you're seeing more American kids go up to play in the CHL. Particularly another stat that they had was even younger kids, 16 and 17-year-old kids that are going to play up there. So what are some things that the USHL is doing? What are some things that USA Hockey is doing in conjunction with you guys at the USHL to make sure we keep our top American talent here and play in the league that Vex and I played in, and all these other amazing players have played in that have really developed them to be great college players, great NHL players in the day? What are some things that the USHL is doing to kind of combat some of that stuff?
Well, I think part of it is making sure that everyone understands. Again, I think I said before, I called it our superpower. Our development model really works very well. It not only works well to develop players for college hockey, it also works to develop them to the National Hockey League. And as I said, I brag about our numbers all the time. People get sick of hearing me about it because I talk about it on every show and anytime I'm on the NHL Network. Our numbers are strong. Our numbers are really good, and that's part of it. It has everything to do with how we operate our league and program. And so I think you're going to see over the next few weeks some significant enhancements to how we operate, how we train, how we develop players. And we're going to be best in class. And I think that alluded to a little bit before about, a new agreement with the NHL. Our relationship with the NHL has never been better. I had an opportunity to meet with the NHL GMs and coaches in September, and then that led to a meeting with their board of governors in December. And we showed what we've been doing, and I think they're excited about it. And I think that the relationship had not been the same. We had a different setup between us and the NHL, and how the NHL interacts with the CHL. But I think you saw in October, Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly got us all together in the same room, and they want to see cooperation and working together and growing the game. Our numbers continue to grow. I know that's been a challenge up in Canada. Their numbers have declined over the last 10 years for a variety of reasons. And that's probably concerning for them. But happily, our numbers continue to grow. I think this Olympic win will make them grow some more. And, USA Hockey has got this development league model that's on the drawing board. I think they're still perfecting it. It's past, the board stages, and now is kind of into, let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. And it's not without concern. Anytime you make a change into the ecosystem like this, it causes, do you remember when we instituted the blue puck?
Mm-hmm.
People lost their minds over it, when there was a mandate for cross ice. And I have a lot of different thought process about that and how we go about it. And, but what does it say in this time of change? What does it say about USA Hockey? We're willing to try new stuff. We're willing to put ourselves out there and do some things differently. As I said, I absolutely have concerns about how we go about it, but we'll work together and we'll work through it. And I think the USHL will play a vibrant role in that, and connecting with other. We're actually having conversations with a different faction of hockey operators, I'll put it that way, to be part of the USHL tent and be part of our family. It's a slightly different model. Let's say it's a prep school model, and wanting to work closely with a few of the prep schools that may want to be in a full season operation, because I think they realize now how sport has changed, not just for hockey, but for how all sports are moving, especially for the 15, 16, 17-year-old athletes. So again, back to the main theme of this, opportunity. There's so much opportunity out there. You can't move fast enough to get after it all.
Yeah, no question. And I applaud USA Hockey for trying new things. I think it's great. And we can sit and debate every single decision that has been made or will be made, until the cows come home. But certainly the intent is there, and you have to shift with the times. You have to. And so I want to ask you something too. You talk about like the numbers, and we've dug into the numbers, particularly with USA Hockey and Hockey Canada. And you're right. In different spots, you're seeing growth, but in different spots you're not. And a lot of what we found is there's not as much growth as we need it to be, particularly on the boys side, and particularly in strong traditional markets. So you look at the Michigans, you look at the Illinois, you look at the New Yorks, you look at the Torontos, you look at the Vancouvers. Those are the areas where we're not seeing growth, or at least the amount of growth that we need. A lot of it comes because of cost. A lot of it, for me, I think, comes from the culture of narrowing the talent pyramid way too early. I think we put too much pressure on these kids too early, and they're like, all right, I'm going to go choose another sport. Can you talk a little bit to what we can do to continue to grow the game? Because the USHL will be as strong as the growth numbers in USA Hockey. The less players that we have playing, the worse the product's going to be in every capacity, in juniors and college and pro. We have to continue to grow the game. So, you're really connected and involved in youth hockey. You understand, all the ins and outs of things that are going on there. What are some things that you think that we can do better as a hockey community to continue to grow the girls growing, non-traditional markets growing pretty good, but those traditional markets on the boys side are seeing some stagnation and even some decrease. And so what can we do to help those markets out and continue to grow the game to make the game better?
It's a great question. I've actually done the analysis on a nationwide basis, And you're right. There are certain markets, particularly Michigan, New York, Mass, New England, Atlantic District, which I have a very close affiliation with, as you know. But in the South, it's growing. Texas, it's growing. Minnesota is growing with thousands. I think they're up by 5,000 male youth hockey players over the last 10 years. But yet Atlantic is down, I think, 2,500 male players. Female growth is up.
Yep.
New York is down. Massachusetts is down by, I think, 5,000. And I think it's not because there's less interest. I think this is happening intentionally. And not, I think it's because, here's the reason why I believe this to be the case. There's a lot of for-profit rinks in these regions. Maybe not as much as Michigan, but there's definitely some. But certainly in the Northeast, there's a lot. It's no longer municipal and county rinks. There's very few. And I think what rink owners have come to realize that it is more cost beneficial and more profitable to actually have less teams and less players at a higher price point. And I'll give you an example. 1,000 players in a house league. It's 60 teams. That's probably a good size, healthy house league. But 60 teams need 120 coaches that need to be safe sported and background checked and, go down the list of all the things, the coaching card, the right module. And then you're dealing with the dynamic of, hey, I paid to do this. I don't want a parent coach. And it becomes so administratively challenging, I think, for rinks. I'll just add 3 or 4 more travel teams and make up the difference and only have to find 8 coaches or 10 coaches versus having to satisfy 1,000 families that all have these parent coaches involved. And I think that's been part of the challenge. It's a little bit of speculation on my part, but it certainly would explain where I think the numbers have gone. Travel hockey, we have teams that are traveling that are of a competitive level that should be playing in house league. They used to play in house leagues. They don't do that anymore. And I don't fault it because I think experientially, what are some of the things that I've heard from A and B parents? That 2-hour car ride out to Hershey or wherever, some of the best time with my kid ever. I have my kid for 2 hours in the car, uninterrupted. I can talk to him or her about life and all of that. So I don't necessarily think it's not horrible, but in terms of being able to grow, it becomes a challenge. And so one of the things that I've offered to, and I've said to the NHL and I've said to USA Hockey, and I don't necessarily think it's USA Hockey's functionality to grow rinks. I think they're supposed to help support new rinks that come online. But where does every single young child experience sport for the first time? Usually within 5 minutes of their home. And the sport has an accessibility problem. I've had this conversation with Kim Davis about, about growing the game for the minority community, but I have families. I live in a fairly wealthy suburban community in North Jersey, and there are families here that absolutely could afford to play hockey. They can't afford the time. I've got to drive 25 minutes this way, 25 minutes back. The other one's got to get picked up locally for gymnastics. If the rink is in town, you're going to have a lot more accessibility. I think we need more. We need more facilities that are like temporary, seasonal rinks that can be used to indoor, outdoor purposes, covered, like, the sprung structured roofs. And we have a couple of those that do that, but we need more of them. And we need to find an affordable way to be able to do that and deliver the product and deliver accessibility to the sport. And I think that is the challenge. I also think that, everybody's family dynamics are different, but it really does take a family unit to play hockey. It's very hard for my mom was a single parent. I thank God that our program was funded by the city and they got a bus to all away games, and it would literally ride by my house and pick me up. Like, I didn't have to go anywhere. Like in the Jersey City here, I'd walk down about, I don't know, about 1,000 yards to the highway, and the bus would come by and pull over, and I'd get on the bus and I'd go to the game. And so like, we don't have that kind of accessibility. And so I think that's probably our biggest challenge. And, the cost is certainly, Aspen Institute put their report out, I think, for last year, and marked from 2018 to 2023 a massive increase in spending, about 46% in household spending on one child's primary sport. Do you know what the number was? You know what the dollar figure was? You're going to laugh when I tell you. It's $1,100 average. We spend that in a weekend or more. So we need kids flying less, parents spending less on rental cars and hotels, and spending more time home training. The rink owners should want that too, because the more time you're in my rink, those are dollars that are spent here and not you traveling. And we have to have more of that training mentality,
So let me ask you this, Glenn, and maybe we can, this will be our swan song here for the conversation. But here we have the commissioner of the USHL, one of the top junior leagues in the world, telling people slow is better. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You don't need to travel a million times a year, to get exposure, things like that. You know as well as we do that USHL teams have an army of scouts and GMs and assistant GMs that are in the rinks all the time. So what is your message? Because so much of what Tier 1 hockey has become, and Vex and I are a product of Tier 1 hockey. We're not slamming it. There are certainly really good things to Tier 1 hockey. But what would you say to the Tier 1 hockey operators? What would you say to the Tier 1 hockey parents as it relates to this rat race that has been created, where families feel like they need to play 70, 80 games a year to get the exposure to play in the USHL? They feel like they need to travel 8, 9, 10 times a year to be able to play in the USHL. They have what would you say as the commissioner to the greater hockey community at the youth level that have aspirations and dreams of playing in your league, with the confines of what we see in youth hockey today?
I would say the first thing to do is find a transformational program. And that means they're putting your needs ahead of their own. And I mean that in terms of coaches. Find a coach that knows that it's about you, not about him or her. They put your wants and needs and goals ahead of their own, because that was something I always felt John Cooper. I always admired how he went about his business from the time he was coaching, in the Central States Junior Hockey League to the North American League to the USHL. He always seemed to be a transformational coach. It was always about his players and how to help them, and that took care of itself for his own career. And I think the best coaches realize that. If you ever have a chance, Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrman it's such a great read about that. So secondarily is to have sanity. I know I was running a AAA league when my kids were coming up, and I needed to play. And I was fortunate because I know I was surrounded by a bunch of pretty good programs. But fortunately, the one closest to my home was the New Jersey Avalanche program, very sane. The guy who ran the program, it was part owner, Danny May. He, it was my son and his son were the same age. And, I always knew that he had sanity running through his veins, and we weren't going to go to 17 showcases, and we weren't going to be flying all over the country. It was going to be a reasonably paced AAA schedule, and it was great. So I think you want to find programs that have that offer you the competition. This frantic notion that, rankings, and stop watching the rankings. The rankings that should matter is, how good is my strength and conditioning coach? How much, at the AAA level, how much time am I getting in the video room? How much individual skill session am I getting? Those are the rankings that you should care about. How good are they at those things?
Weird.
I know it's not popular. And rankings are fun and amusing, but
no, they're not. When you have teams cancel weekends towards the end of the year because they're playing a team that's ranked behind them and they don't want to risk their ranking, like, what are we doing?
Well, an issue that that I think USA Hockey can help create or helped create, in part because the at-large bids are in part based upon some consideration of rankings, and I think if you find a way to do it so that it's based upon competition on what actually happens in a game, the results of the game determine who advances to nationals always. Then I think you remove that craziness. And I've seen it. I've seen parents just go crazy. Oh my God, we're supposed to beat them by 6, and if we don't, we're gonna drop. And like, what?
But it's hockey. This isn't math, too. Like, that's not how hockey works. Yeah, we should be. It says we're supposed to beat them by 7 on the internet. Excuse me, what? This isn't chess. This is hockey.
And you know what? I'll tell you one other. This is a really great statistic. I stripped away all of the players that came out of other junior programs into the USHL right now. And I stripped away the Minnesota high school player because we have a lot of them. And what was left was all the players that came out of youth hockey, AAA youth hockey. I have 54 different organizations represented from 74 different teams. What does that tell you? And some of those rankings on some of those teams were in the 70s and 80s. So every team has a player or two. You know, there's a handful of teams that feed us a lot of players, but that's only 5 or 6. The rest are all feeding us, 2, 3 players, in some cases 1 player. And that's the whole point of this, is that every player finds their pace. Maybe I'm a kid who lives in Atlanta and there's only one program here, and it's an okay program, but they do off ice and they train and we practice and we get all those other things. As an individual player that has the ability and talent level, I'm going to get better as a result of that. And I don't necessarily have to leave to go to that team that's ranked 3rd. And that's the point. And so I think those are the things we want to be mindful of. I want more teams and more associations providing that benefit at home of training. And that's how you win this race. We are going to continue to compete at the highest levels and have success because of what we're doing off the ice and maybe capping our game count. And I think those are the things that we have to follow. I mean, we have this debate in our own room every year. The USHL board debates this. Are we playing too many games? I'm so proud of that fact that we talk about it. It's an important issue. And, it's like these are owners that talk about this, that talk about playing less games. That's so awesome that they're willing to do that. And we have this intellectual battle about what is the right game count and how should the season be paced. And and sometimes it's really nuanced, but it's great conversation and it's thoughtful and it's development focused. It's not dollar focused.
Glenn, I'd like to hire you for head of marketing of my training company, please. Everything you said, man, it's so cool. And I was talking to Brian Galvin, who's Buffalo Sabres. Yeah, the best head strength coach and GVN and Team USA NTDP and all that stuff about game counts and stuff like that. And we've gone back and forth on kind of our ideas on that. But the one thing that I tell everyone, and I have since I got into training and I learned about the NTDP and how they did things maybe when I was 20 years old, and just telling everybody, like, they train 4 to 5 days a week every single week for 2-3 straight years, no matter what. And they turn out like kids go into their boys and they come out men. Like, they come out absolute men.
If I can give you this example, I asked Brian to put together, this was last year, a strength and conditioning summit for all of our strength and conditioning coaches. We flew them into Detroit. They had Michigan's strength and conditioning coach, Detroit Red Wings strength and conditioning coach, and Brian's staff, Brian's lead guy there, whose name is escaping me.
Joe Maloney.
Ran him through the paces. But here's what he did. He said something. We're in the classroom, and he says, okay, I have my degree from here and a certificate from here and certifications in this and educated in that. And he listed all of his bona fides. And then he said, what I'm about to show you, I didn't know 2 years ago. And I'm thinking, what? That's how fast this changes and how you have to stay on top of things. And one of the beauty parts of this is that, when the Detroit Red Wings strength and conditioning coach learns something that gives his team advantage, they're not sharing it. But Brian will share everything. He'll share everything about how to mitigate soft tissue injury, like all these things and I am not the model of fitness and haven't been the model of fitness for 60 years. But to see and hear what they were presenting. And so then they brought the staff down to the gym, and the 17s came in. Now this was in September. And I thought we brought in a Bantam team. I'm not kidding. Like, this can't be our 17th team that's going to play in the USHL in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like, that's not possible. And he goes, oh, it's the 17 team. And they look like boys. I thought it was like a group of 14, 15-year-olds. Then the 18 team came in. 1 year difference. Holy moly. They were men. And you're right. So when you do this really, really well, it's going to make a difference. That's where we're going to win, because we have the ability to do that.
Amazing.
100% agree. And it's what I try and do with all the organizations I work with here in St. Louis. It's like, dude, let's put a gym in every single rink. Let's partner so that everybody's winning. In season, your players are paying almost nothing cost per session, but I'm getting the volume and getting to help tons and tons of players. Then the ones that really take it seriously and want to move on are going to do the off-season training and are going to push themselves. And that's where you really separate, the men from the boys and the women from the girls. But offering that, you're offering them just like something else as a youth organization. You're offering hockey and everything that goes with that. But then you're also teaching them how to be physically fit. And as a human being, is there anything more important than taking care of the one body that we have for our whole life? And we can teach them in a fun and dynamic and energetic way, multiple times a week with their best friends, so to me, it's like, well, now you as an organization can offer way more to your players because you have this as a component that's also going to help you move more players on. So whether you're in hockey for fun or whether you're in hockey to try and take it as far as you can, everybody's kind of winning, I think.
And those create habits that they take with them. And that goes to Rand Pecknold's comment about, our guys are just ready. They're battle tested and they're ready to go. I don't know that that's happening in every junior team across.
It's not. I know it's not, because I work with a ton of them, and I've worked with probably 25, 30 junior teams over the last 5 years. And I know it's not. And the lower budget teams, I feel for them. They're going to CrossFit, or their players have nothing. Not in the USHL, in other leagues. Obviously, the USHL is taken care of, but the other leagues, and it's just like you have to be doing that. It's not even an option. You have to.
One of the components that we're going to have with this NHL piece, and we launched last year, we called it the Declaration of Excellence, and this is going to be part of that. One of the pieces that is we're going to be developing a confidential survey that will go directly to the players so that the NHL and the USHL get that feedback directly as to the player's experience. Now, can you imagine, as a parent, as an agent, knowing that your player is going to a team that has to be audited for performance, and your son is going to be able to give that feedback at the end of the season? And we may do two. I think they may call for one mid-season, one of end of season. And it's not like a complicated thing. It's just some basic core questions about their training and experience as a player, which has to be exceptional. And that's what we're aiming for. And we know we're going to make a few mistakes along the way, but we're going to nail it. And that will help us perfect where we have to go as a league.
That's very cool. Yeah, that's really, really cool. Glenn, I want to bring up something really quick, because I want to make sure that I heard you right when you talked about it. But you stripped away Minnesota high school teams and maybe some, I don't know what the other one was. And you looked at just
other junior leagues.
Other junior leagues. So you strip away Minnesota, you strip away the other junior leagues, and the players that are playing in your league, top junior league, come from 54 different organizations.
Yes. From 74 teams within those organizations.
So 16U or 18U.
Or
yeah.
18U. Yep. Or a 15. You might have some.
15. So I want to talk to the parents out there, especially even like the young parents who think that your kid needs to be on a super team with the big My Hockey rankings to be able to quote unquote make it. We're talking about a top junior league right now, and fifth is represented when you take away Minnesota high school and other junior leagues, is represented by 54 different tier 1 organizations in the United States.
Yes.
That is one of the coolest, best, most profound stats that I think I've heard in a long time in doing this podcast, because Vex and I, we talk a lot about everybody's got a different path. It's a different journey. It's better to marinate than to go too quick. You know, you don't have to narrow the talent pyramid so quickly. Find a better coach versus a better program, right? Like the coaching you talked about earlier, like is everything. Who's the coach, and are you going to have an opportunity to play? And 54 different tier 1 organizations are represented for players in the top junior league in the United States and potentially the world. Like that, to me, if that doesn't blow your mind and calm you down a little bit from the youth all the way up through, you know, midget hockey, what a stat. What a stat.
It's awesome. And I guarantee you, if we brought the junior players that maybe came from the North American League or BCHL, you know, we get players from a bunch of different junior leagues. I guarantee you it would add more triple, like if you went back through their lineage, be even more organizations. And so it just happened to be those players had to take a different route. And I think that's an exciting thing. And we certainly want to have good relationships with all of those organizations. They're supporting us. They're helping players achieve their goals. I had one other thing that I do this little thing with anytime I have a group of players, I hold the phone up and I ask them to, if they don't mind, if they're comfortable doing it, open up Screen Time and go to your weekly stats and tell me, if you're comfortable, what are your top 3 apps and how much time? And almost every single player is TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and they're spending hours there. And that is a problem. And I again, I'm not here to preach about, the ills of social media, and because there's a lot of good and benefit that come from social media, for sure. But players spend so much time. And so when I do this with the referees too, and I visit our referee camp and I ask them to do the same thing. Now they're a little bit older. They're going to be 20, 21, 22, 23, some older. And, they'll have this same issue, and they're 10, 12, 14 hours in these social media apps, and they're just, they're death scrolling. I said, so when I ask you to spend, an hour a week reading your rule book over and over and over again, so you know it backwards and forwards, don't tell me you don't have the time. Don't tell me you don't have an extra hour a day to put into into working out and being an elite athlete as an official. So that is probably the next, that maybe we could save that for the next time I'm on the podcast to talk about those challenges of getting kids away from their phones and whatnot, and spending more time shooting 1,000 pucks and in their basement and breaking windows, because that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I have one more question if you have time, and this is one that we Callie Larson, who was, I'm sure very well, was the general manager for Dubuque. And this is pre-COVID. So this is like maybe 18, 19 when we had this conversation. In fact, you'll remember the conversation. But I'm a big believer, and I've seen this as a college coach at the Division I level. Best players at 13 aren't always the best players at 15. Best players at 15 aren't always the best at 17. Best at 17 aren't always the best at 19. And you can take that all the way through up until kids get to college or pro. And one of the stats that he showed us, and again, this is, the USHL 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years ago, but they looked at the phase 1 draft. And the stat that he showed us was, it was only, I believe it was 36% of players that got drafted in the phase 1 draft actually played a full year for their team in the USHL. And we would always joke that having drafts at 15 is like legalized gambling. You never know what you're going to get because 15-year-olds are young and immature, and there's so much puberty to be had. And it's just like it's an inexact science, and it's one of the hardest things to do as a GM or a scout in any junior league to project what a 15-year-old is going to be at 16, 17, 18 when they're eventually going to get into the league. So I wanted to ask you, like, I know you do a lot of research on different things. Do you have any advice for kids or families, or maybe even like tier one operators and the people that are getting kids into your league? What does a USHL player look like that succeeds? Like what's one that gets drafted and then ends up having success in the league and then ends up having success in college hockey? Have you seen any like themes, or have you seen anything as far as how to best, if you are a top 15-year-old and you're getting drafted into juniors, how you can be one of the players that ends up, it's the same in the NHL, right? There's only a small fraction of people in the NHL that get drafted that end up having great NHL careers. What advice would you have to, if you are a top 15-year-old, to stay the top 17-year-old, to stay the top 19-year-old?
I would tell you that, so first of all, we do combines for sure. And I think those numbers have since changed from.
I would imagine so. Yeah. This was a long time ago.
There's other technologies that help us do that better now. Because I think at a time back then, if you're looking at 15 years ago, there was a lack of public data that was helpful. Like I know every player that gets invited to the combine, there's research done on every single player. We look to see as elite prospects. We want to make sure they're playing. And now you have all these, Instat, Huddle, and, Sport Logic, and you've got all this data now and the ability to actually watch players anywhere in the world, thanks to, to companies like LiveBarn and whatnot. So I think from that standpoint, I think we're better at it. I actually had our data guy, Michael Ostrower, to do the research on this and do an analysis of it. And I just literally have not had a chance to read the report. I got it last week. So we are looking at that. What does a prototypical, I'm forgetting who scored our first goal in the gold medal game. I'm so bad. Matt Boldy. Matt Boldy attended our combine. And my director of player personnel was very quick to point that out to me. And along with other players that, that have gone on to a lot of success. And so I think and I'm not the learned hockey guy here. You guys are more so than I am. I don't think there's secrets in this game anymore. Like, I don't think when we talk about this, this gem of a player, I think good players, given the right opportunity, like in the USHL, that genuinely are, dedicated to development, will find themselves in a position, and I'll use Ethan Wittenbeck, who wasn't sure he was going to make Sioux Falls. Like I think that's our classic case. I think that's the case for a lot of players. Macklin Celebrini is a unicorn. And then there's everybody else, right? Like that's what it is. And it's everybody else that makes up the overwhelming majority of teams at the collegiate level and at the pro level. And so I think the tools are there. The opportunity is there. It's up to you what you do with it as an individual player. And you know what? Sometimes players with an awful lot of raw talent, they really don't want to be here. Some players I'm doing this because, my dad, this is his dream for me. And players have to come to that realization at times. I don't think that's I don't think that's a large number, but I think that happens. And so for me, what you look for in a player is someone that's going to make your team. And Billy McCreary, who coached for me at the Junior Avalanche years back, like that's what he said. We're building a team, and it may be with very average players from a talent standpoint. And they were slightly above average, and kids that never played. It was a startup team, and they never played together. And we were an overtime goal away from going to nationals with that team. And so I think it's a lot of the culture you build and players that are willing to submit to a culture it's not about them. I think Team USA certainly demonstrated that culture, that it was about the mission, it was about the team, and so I think that's the prototypical player you look for, and hopefully parents begin to understand that that's separate. My kid played; he was a good player. He played AAA 2 years. He didn't. His 2 Pee Wee years, he didn't. I never talked to his coaches. Never, even when he was mite age. Like, that guy over there is the guy that can help you. You know what? I'm not talking to him. This is your game. And that's the benefit of having been involved in the sport. And I think more and more parents have to kind of cut the cord and, and finding those kids that do that. That was one of the things that was kind of a little stark for me. I was at my first game. I won't tell you where. But I went to the game, and then after the game was over, I went down to say hello to the coaches, and I see a handful of players on the phone. And I instantly went to, they're calling their parents. And I went inside and talked to the coach. I go, these kids are out already talking to their parents. He goes, not talking to their parents, talking to their agent. And I'm like, what? They're talking to their agent. If this was my team, you wouldn't be allowed to call your agent from inside the building, period. Like, no, we don't do that here. I mean, unless you're meeting him for dinner. So, like, those are the things you have to look for, and finding players that know how to battle through adversity. I mean, I hope I'm answering the question. I try to think, like, if I were, when I GM'd the Avalanche team, that's kind of what I thought about. Kids that knew how to battle through adversity, that didn't need to, run to mom and dad when they weren't happy that they weren't on the power play or the PK. And, you want to talk about mission focused. How the hell does a team go 18 for 18 on the PK? How does
Amazing.
the team do that?
Yeah. Incredible.
Focus.
Absolutely incredible. Yeah, I think it's coachability over complacency. I think there's a lot of kids who get drafted, whether it's a junior draft or even an NHL draft. That's, I made it. And they forget that the thing that got them there was the work, and you see it happen all the time. And as I progressed and learned more as a recruiter and a scout and at the college level, the more I came to really appreciate a kid who was coachable and a kid who wanted to get better. Because at the end of the day, for a junior draft, those kids probably aren't getting to your team for another 2 to 3 years. In college, you make a commitment, and that kid's probably not getting to your program for another 2 to 3 years. You draft a kid in the NHL, that kid might be 4 years away from getting to where you are. And so you have to put a premium on kids that really have shown a knack to want to get better. What are they doing when the lights are off? What are they doing Monday through Thursday during practice? I tell kids all the time, it's amazing how many college coaches and probably junior scouts too have live barn accounts. And it's not to watch you playing games. It's to watch you play in practice. When you're making a projection, the best way to project is to get as much information as you can on how good a kid is in practice and how much they care about that. And for all the kids that are out there listening, it's coachability over complacency. How many of the best kids at 15 made it, man? And then all of a sudden, the kids who didn't get drafted but got a little pissed off, or maybe they were drafted in the lower rounds, and you know what? Maybe I need to get better. They get passed real quick, real quick.
Oh, motivation, right? And I, the body language is always a thing for me. And I like you see how players react to adversity and how they handle it on the ice, and do they slam their stick, or it's just how they compose themselves. And those are, I think those are skills you can definitely learn and things you can teach. And it's making sure you have coaches that, what you're looking for in a program, like making sure you have a coach that knows those things and can teach them to you as an athlete. I think performance there's just so many, it's not just how fast you skate, how fast is your shot, how accurate, how you think the game is. So many other things away from it that matter and come into play.
No question. Well, Glenn Hefferan, I think we just broke a record on the longest podcast we've done in a while. I love it. No, it's good.
Awesome.
There were a couple of times where I was like, all right, I think I need to end it here. But I was like, wait a second, I got another question for him. So I appreciate you taking all this time to do this with us. And I think it's just such great information. The hockey world's changing, particularly at junior and college level. And there's always a trickle down effect, right? So every time there's a change up here, it trickles down and trickles down and trickles down. And then people are figuring out how to best, support their families and kids with all the changes that are going on. And so this was great perspective, great insight, great information, and we really appreciate your time. And as to proud USHL alums, me with the Chicago Steel and Jeffrey Levechkio with the Omaha Lancers, the heat is on. If anybody knows the USHL, you know that how much everybody that did not play in Omaha hates that song, because every time we went to Omaha when Mike Hastings was coaching there, we would get pumped and 5 to 6 goals and the heat is on playing. But no, just a wealth of information, Glenn. We appreciate your time and keep up the great work.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And I didn't realize we'd run so long. So if it has to be 2-part series, it's great.
All good. All good. Thanks, Glenn.
All righty, guys. Be well.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player drops and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states, void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets, which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright 2026. NHL. All rights reserved.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.